All right, today we're going to deconstruct a really foundational piece of web security, AWS WAF Classic. And trust me, by understanding this classic tool, you're going to grasp the fundamental logic that protects pretty much every modern website you use. So let's dive in. So the very first thing you'll see in AWS's own documentation is this big warning sign. WAF Classic is being retired, which, brings up a really good question. Yeah, why would we spend any time at all on a tool that's on its way out? It seems kind of backwards, right? But there is a very, very good reason. It's because the principles behind WAF Classic are absolutely timeless. This logic, it's the bedrock of nearly every modern web application firewall. By breaking down this simpler classic system, we can actually see how they all work under the hood. So let's start at the beginning. What even is a web application firewall, or WAF for short? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like a digital bouncer for your website or your API. It's standing right at the front door, checking everyone who tries to get in. Its whole job is to inspect all the web traffic coming to your application and then decide what to do with it. Based on a set of rules you give it, it can either let the request through to see your content, or it can block it completely. It basically tells it, nope, you're not on the list, and slams the door with an HTTP 403 forbidden error. The whole system is built on 3 core components that just fit together like Lego bricks. First, you've got conditions. These are the specific things to look for. Then you combine those into rules, which are the instructions. And finally, you organize all those rules into what's called a web ACL, and that's your master security plan. Let's break each of these down. So let's start with that first Lego brick. Conditions. If our WAF is the bouncer, then conditions are the specific items on their checklist. Are you on the VIP list? Are you wearing the right dress code? These are those individual little checks. So a condition is really just the simplest check the WAF can perform. It's a single characteristic it's been told to watch for in any given web request. Let's look at a few of the most common ones. The most basic check you can do is an IP match. This just asks a simple question. Is this request coming from a known good place or a known bad place? You can build these allow lists or block lists of up to 10,000 IP addresses to control who even gets to knock on the door. And you can go even broader than a specific IP address. You can filter by geography. So if your business only operates in, say, North America, you can just block traffic from everywhere else. This is also incredibly useful for blocking attacks that are known to come from specific parts of the world. Okay, next up, we have a condition designed to stop one of the oldest tricks in the book, SQL injection. This is where an attacker tries to sneak database commands into a web request to steal your data. A WAF is specifically trained to spot the patterns of these malicious commands long before they can ever do any damage. Another really common threat is cross-site scripting, or XSS. This is where an attacker tries to inject their own nasty scripts into your website to mess with your users. Again, the WAF is trained to recognize what these scripts look like and can stop them cold at the door. And of course, there are other conditions too. You can look for specific bits of text, like a known bot name. You can use regular expressions for super complex pattern matching, or even check if parts of a request are suspiciously long or short. Each one is just another specific check on that bouncer's list.
Okay, so a single condition on its own isn't all that powerful. The real magic, though, happens when you start combining them into rules.
A rule is where you take one or maybe even a few of those conditions and you link them together with AND logic. This is key. It means for a rule to be triggered, a request has to match every single condition inside it. So for example, a request has to come from a specific IP address and it has to contain a malicious script. Now, WAF Classic gives us 2 flavors of rules. A regular rule is what we just talked about. It matches a specific pattern. But then you have a rate-based rule, which adds time into the mix. It says, hey, if you see traffic that matches these conditions and it's sending more than, say, 1,000 requests in 5 minutes, then block it. This is your main defense against brute force attacks and denial of service attempts. All right, we have our conditions, our checklist items. We have our rules, our instructions. The final step is combining them all into the master plan, the Web Access Control List, or the Web ACL. A Web ACL is basically a collection of all your rules, but, and this is super important, it's a prioritized list. The WAF checks requests against your rules one by one in the exact order you set. And as soon as a rule matches, bam, its action is taken and the whole process stops. This means the order of your rules matters a lot. So what are those actions? Well, there are 3 simple choices for any rule. You can explicitly allow a request. That's like putting someone on the VIP list. You can block a request, which is like kicking them out, or you can just count the request. This last one is super useful for testing a new rule to see what it would have blocked without actually impacting any real traffic. But what about a request that comes in and doesn't match any of your rules? That's where the default action comes in. You can set it to allow, which creates a kind of block list that only stops known bad guys. Or you can set it to block, which creates a much more secure allow list that only permits known good traffic. And there you have it. That's the entire flow. It's actually a pretty simple and elegant system when you break it down. You define your individual checks, the conditions, you combine those into instructions, the rules, and then you assemble all of that into a prioritized master plan, the web ACL, with a default action for everything else. So let's bring this all home. We've just deconstructed this classic piece of technology, but why is this so important for anyone building things on the web today? Because while AWS WAF Classic itself is being retired, its successor, and honestly virtually every other WAF on the market, is built on these exact same principles. The user interface might look fancier, there might be more advanced features, but the core logic of conditions, rules, and access control lists, that is absolutely fundamental. If you understand this classic version, you have the key to understanding all of them. So as you think about your own applications, or even just the websites you use every single day, remember this model. Every single one needs a bouncer at the door. The only question is, what's on their checklist? What rules have you given them?